What is going on, y'all? It's your boy RickyMoto. Welcome back to yet another video. Hope you guys have been enjoying the tutorial series on how to ride a motorcycle. I already pushed out 2 episodes. One, the basics about, different aspects and parts and how to use different controls. And then the second episode was how to ride for the first time, using the clutch, how to shift gears, how to use the throttle, how to use the brakes. Now we are on episode 3. This is a little bit more advanced, where basically I'm assuming you guys have already gotten enough practice in an empty parking lot where you know how to counter steer, how to use your throttle control, how to shift. And it's time for you to move on to the public roads. So I'm not going to talk too much about how to actually ride a motorcycle. I'm going to be talking about more on the road safety, what to look out for, how to position yourself on the road, because if you don't know what you're doing, you can get hurt real bad. So without further ado, let's hop on the beautiful R3, start this baby up, and get going. So this is a very big step for beginner riders going on the road for the first time. I know when I first went on the road, I was hella freaked out. When I first started riding on the public road, I actually started riding in just my neighborhood, just going up and down the block. That's what I would actually suggest doing rather than going on the main road. It's a good time to go through the indicators. So I'm gonna make a right turn right now. So the right indicator is right on your thumb. So when you push it to the right, that's how the indicator is activated. You always want to do that if you're about to make a turn. Ooh, M4. And after you make the turn, you want to turn off the indicator by pushing it in the middle. The red light, you want to keep your left foot on the ground and your right foot constantly on the rear brake. That way the bike's not going to roll. You can always pull in the front brake as well. But if you hold the rear brake on your right foot and your left foot stay on the ground, you will be able to keep afloat and balanced. Now I'm going to make a lane change, signal to the right, turn your head to the right, check your blind spot, go into the lane, and then you want to turn off your indicator light. Now I gotta make another turn, so I'm gonna turn my indicator back on. I would not ever trust my motorcycle mirrors just because they barely give you any sort of visibility. These are aftermarket mirrors, so they have terrible visibility, but even with the stock mirrors, you can barely see anything. I always suggest when you're changing lanes to always turn your head and actually look physically, because you never know if there's a car over there. So now that we're cruising, you still want to be very alert. You want to look out for a lot of things on a road. You can't really ride a motorcycle like you would drive a car where you can just be kind of mindless. You have to constantly be looking for escape points and how to position yourself. So right now I'm in a pretty good spot. This lane is pretty open and I'm just right in the middle of it. I'm also avoiding these cracks in the road, so like that. If you see these cracks in the road, try to avoid them. Potholes, whatever. You want to just kind of swerve around it, because sometimes if you hit into a couple of holes, you can actually lose traction and lose control. Now the way you position yourself in a lane is, you basically take control of that whole lane. You could be in the middle of it, you can kind of be on the side of it, depending on, if there's imperfections on the road. And you constantly want to be checking your blind spots, look left, look right, keep your eyes straight as well. You want to constantly check your mirrors every 3 seconds. Even though you can barely see anything, you always want to just constantly check your mirrors, constantly check your side, constantly be looking left and right. Another thing you got to be looking out for is escape points. So, sometimes the car in front of you will cut into your lane. Don't do that, guys. I just saw an open road. I'm like, okay, I gotta do something. But yeah, basically you want to be looking for escape points. Like this guy, he almost just stopped and he's swerving. Look at him, he's swerving left and right. So basically my 2 escape points right now is the left lane and the right lane. So let's say he starts swerving to the left or swerving to the right, I can go in the opposite direction. You want to also keep a nice following distance. You want to leave about, I'd say at least 4 cars of distance in between you. Like right now we have a perfect amount of escape points. Left lane, right lane, and even in between the cars. I know that sounds terrible to say, but for example, let's say this guy slams on his brakes, right, and I don't have time. I'll swerve like this in between the lane and escape so I don't crash. Now something you could do when you're on the main road, if you're at a traffic light and it's really long, you can actually put the bike into neutral and let go of the clutch so you can actually kind of chill. Another thing you have to look out for is how you place your body on the road, right? Motorcycles are inherently hard to be seen on the road by cars. So you gotta, make yourself visible to cars. So the way you do that is to not be in any car's blind spot. You either want to be directly behind a car or ahead of a car. You never want to be either on its side. You never want to be in its corners. if you do happen to be on the side of the car, you want to be at least a little bit ahead. You don't want to be like on the back quarter panel area, because that literally you cannot be seen. We are in a terrible spot. So this is actually a really bad spot. See how I'm like right on the left side of this car in the back? You want to accelerate and get out of that position because they cannot see you. Now we're in a pretty decent spot, but as I speed up a little bit, now I'm entering the blind spot zone on both cars. This is death zone, the death valley, man. So you want to get ahead of them. Now both of those cars that couldn't see me can see me at a good safe position. You constantly want to be getting out of bad positions because in a split second you never know what a car can do to you. Now that the road's empty, you kind of lay back and chill a little bit. You don't have to worry too much. We are in a beautiful position right now with 3 open lanes. So we're gonna change lanes right now. We're gonna turn our left indicator on, turn our head, make our turn, and turn the indicator off. So those are the things that you gotta know with riding a motorcycle on the public roads. There is so much stuff to look out for. Sometimes if the roads are busy, an escape point could be even the shoulder on the side of the road. Now as we're coming up on this truck over here, trucks have really bad visibility. So what we can do is, because I have a lane open on the right, I'll signal, turn to the right lane. Now I actually have an additional lane in between me and the truck. That way, God forbid, he actually swerves into the second lane or whatever, or even loses control and swerves all the way to the right lane, at least you have this much space to dodge or get away from that accident. You always want to be as far away from a car that you can be. Like, I'm in the perfect position right now because I have 2 lanes of space away from all the cars. So I'm going to show you guys an example of the neutral. So we're at a red light. I'm in first gear. I don't want to hold on to the clutch too long. I'm going to shift up to neutral gear and I can release the clutch. Now I also want to hold the rear brake with my right foot at least. But if you got to change gears, you got to put your right foot down to change gears. So what we could do is just hold the front brake if you're in neutral and put your right foot down so both your feet are on the ground. I'm going to put it back into first. We're up to go. So yeah, that is how you kind of navigate around the streets. You just have to be alert and see, what's around you. You want to constantly be putting yourself in places that you could be seen. Most motorcycle accidents and collisions actually happen from cars hitting motorcycles, not motorcycles hitting into stuff. And the main reason why cars are hitting into bikers is because they simply just can't see you. Another thing is the sound. That's why a lot of bikers have loud exhaust, so then cars can hear where you are. That way you don't get hit. But you can't constantly rely off of that because a lot of the exhaust noises is coming from the back of the bike. So if there's a car in front of you, they can barely hear you that you're coming by. So I still think the most important part is body positioning, where you put yourself on the road, and constantly looking for escape points. Right now, let's hypothetically imagine that this road is filled with cars, on my right, in front of me, and something happens where the guy in front of me slams on his brakes or someone cuts me off and I need to dodge, otherwise I'm going to ram into it. The escape point for me would be in this middle lane, the one with all this yellow stuff on the side. I would just swerve right into that and try to come to a stop. Obviously, just comes risk with that, whatever's oncoming traffic or the car coming by. But when you're in a situation like that, it's life or death. Are you gonna make the chance and try to dodge and hope that you survive, or for sure crash into the car in front and guarantee die? You know what I'm saying? I know it sounds pretty harsh, but riding a motorcycle is dangerous. You can't necessarily make it not dangerous, but you can always mitigate that risk of getting hurt. Let's say you have an emergency stop where you do have to brake suddenly. The thing is, you want to use more of the front brake than you do the rear. Because the rear brake, if you hit the rear way too hard, you're gonna risk locking it up, and what's gonna happen is you're gonna skid and you can lose control. Really, the way I brake on normal conditions is I use the rear brake, I drag that first, then I slowly tap on the front brake. But in emergency situations, I'll slam on both, but I'll slam more on the front end. That way it's more effective. it's obviously to be, you know, throwing your body forward, but you know, you need to stop quickly. On top of that, you know, if you're in the right gear, you also get a good amount of engine braking. So once you let off the throttle, the bike will actually kind of slow itself down by itself. So that way you actually don't really need to use all that much braking in general. Motorcycle brakes are not as powerful as car brakes. You got to keep that in mind, which is why I suggest keeping a nice 4-car distance at least with the car in front of you when cruising. Motorcycles only have 2 wheels, 2 tires that touch the ground. That's not as much traction as a car. You gotta be mindful of that, and you know, want to brake earlier and not, you know, brake when you get really close. Yet again, we're at a red light. You always want to be holding at least one of the brakes. I'm holding the rear brake right now so I don't roll back, and my left foot is on the ground. Now typically on a hill like this, since we're on a slant, I'll actually hold the front brake as well. I'll hold both because sometimes the rear brake isn't strong enough and it still rolls backwards. If you're a new rider and you're not really all that comfortable on the road, I suggest you just staying on the right lane. It's going to be a little bit safer because the right lane is usually, you know, the traffic is moving slower than the left lane. And on top of that, you actually have more escape points on the right lane because you have the shoulder, you have, like, for example, all those parking spaces over there. If they're empty, you can always swerve into there if you have an emergency. Because on the left lane, you don't really have too much to swerve into as an escape point. Usually there's oncoming traffic and it's kind of dangerous to swerve into the left lane. Now, one more thing you want to keep in mind is as you're riding, you want to look far. You don't want to look like right down here. You want to look up, you want to look at the road, you want to keep your eyes constantly on the road, not at your bike. I know a lot of new riders, they'll constantly stare at the freaking dash because they want to see what RPM or what gear, like if they're doing something wrong. It's okay to glance at your dash time to time, but you have to constantly keep your eyes on the road too. It's kind of like driving a car. You can't be staring at your steering wheel, you have to be looking at the road. Same thing with the motorcycle. You have to really be looking at the road. You want to look far ahead. Like my eye line right now is actually staring at the car in front of the car in front of me. As I'm making this turn, I'm also looking at this truck next to me and making sure he doesn't swerve into my lane. Right now that I'm clear, I can focus on the front. Now I'm looking at the car in front of me. I gotta make a left turn here, signal, make a left head turn, make the turn, and we're off. So yeah, just have to be constantly alert. You know, a lot of the concepts of, you know, road safety on a motorcycle is really similar to road safety on the car. You're looking out for the same things. But yeah, hopefully this video can kind of clear up the air on road safety and how to ride a motorcycle for the first time on the road and what to look out for. If you guys have been liking this tutorial series so far, make sure to drop a like and a comment below. It's been your boy RickyMoto. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.